Vitus, Mark, welcome to Romania.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's nice to have you here. So we prepared an interview for you guys. I would like to ask you a few questions for our Romanian audiophile community. They are curious about some stuff. I'm curious about some stuff, so maybe we can shed some light on that. I'm going to ask you a few questions, but I'm going to ask you one for you and then one for you, so we'll do it like that. We're going to alternate the questions, okay?
Perfect.
Great. We'll start with you, Vitus.
Okay.
Can you tell me when was the first time you heard a system that made you say, this is it, this is how the music should sound? What system was it? What track were you listening to? And what hit you the hardest in that moment?
That's a very hard question because I was in this business for a very, very long time, more than 20 years. And I can't say that this was the system that made me go, well, so this is it, but I can tell you exactly what it was that made me really, really want to go into this business. And it was actually a very old friend of mine's father's system. And it was a Luxman 5L5 or 15, I don't remember exactly, small integrated amp from the laboratory series with the VU meters and everything. It was a Microseiki DQX 500 turntable with a Platomatter mat, and it was a Benz cartridge. I'm not 100% sure which one it was, but one of the upper ones. And it was the good old penguins penguins, pregnant penguins. They have many nicknames. The BMW, no, not BMW, BNW DM6, I believe they were. Don't remember the cables though, sorry. And we were sitting in this listening room. I was just visiting my friend, and he put on Dire Straits, from one of their debut albums, the white one with a picture in the center. I don't remember the track name, but it was this, Down to the Waterline, they sing, and it has this very lazy, dragging, deep bass, and it was just one of those moments where like, this is really awesome. So that was what kind of caught me to wanted to explore more into this world of reproduction of music. That's and when was it? I was probably 17, 16-ish. That's a lifetime ago. So.
Okay. Mark, you've said that most cables you tried as an audiophile lied about the music. Can you tell us more about the exact moment, the specific system, track, and cable when you first realized that cables were the weakest link and that you had to build your own?
Oh, we are back in 1969. I was a kid on 9 years and built my own transmission speakers with one driver. And the cables I took out the isolation and twisted double plus, double minus, and I found out it was sounding better. So as a 9 years old boy, they had a very humble system, was listening to the music that was in the 60s with a great experience. I promised myself one day I want to do business with this here. And this is the beginning. And then for 20 years ago, I was hired as a sales manager for a Scandinavian distributor. I realized how popular cables are, and that was the kickstart for me to generate a business plan and start off with ZenSati. And from the first day, we had customers and could make revenue from this product. Yeah.
Okay. Vitus.
Yes.
It is well known that Vitus Audio avoids global negative feedback at all costs. Can you take us back to the exact moment or experience that made you decide no global feedback would be the non-negotiable philosophy of the brand, and what convinced you the risks were worth it?
Well, this was multifaceted kind of thing, and it would be a very, very long talk because there's a lot of trial and error going into that. But one of the things that kind of did tipped the whole thing for me was when I was working with Texas Instruments. At some point, they were at least at the time, they were heavy into DSP, digital signal processing, and they were going really into the field of low power DSPs, to the point where they had this idea that could go into hearing aids. And the thing with Denmark and hearing aids is that hearing aids are not manufactured in Denmark as such, but they are designed, a lot of them, in Denmark. So around 50% of the worldwide TAM of hearing aids is actually in Denmark because of that. So they wanted to penetrate or see if they could penetrate this market. So they hired this professor that was only, into ears and how ears work. Hired him, I don't remember the university he was working for, but they hired him into this special task force of looking into hearing aids and how they could, make standardized code, whatever you want to call it, for hearing aids, and try to penetrate that market. And because I was in Denmark, I had the pleasure of traveling with this guy around and visiting if not all, then at least most of the hearing aid manufacturers and designers in Denmark. And this is where I learned, talking to these people that don't do anything else than hearing, that to be able for the ear to detect an amplitude difference, you need about a dB before so if you have half a dB, it's difficult for the ear to hear it. A dB, you're certain everybody pretty much hear it. Of course, some don't, some hear less, or can hear less than half a dB. But phase, in general, you need very, very little phase shift, and the ear detects it immediately. And this is what is used in surround sound and all of these different things. It's playing with phase. And I know a lot of people say that, global feedback doesn't introduce a phase error. But it does in the terms of the delay. And so when you need this very, very little, like 0.1% degree or whatever it was, I don't remember the figures anymore, in phase shift for the ear to detect it, my philosophy really just was that the slightest delay, the slightest phase shift would be a problem. And when you take something from an output and feed it back to the input, you do in some sense introduce a delay or a phase shift. And so that was like the dot over the I for me, combined with all the experiments that I did, that I decided, I'm not going there. I wouldn't though say that it's a die-hard non-compromise thing that we would never use global feedback. We do in certain areas, but in the power amplifiers and everything we do discreetly, there is absolutely no global feedback. As an example, our MC stages is using a different technology, and the technology that we're using in there, we have to use a global feedback. So it's not like we will never use it, but we try to avoid it as much as we possibly can. So that's the shortest answer I can give.
Excellent. Mark,
Yeah.
the name ZenSati
Yeah.
comes from Zen, which is deep knowing,
Yeah.
and Sati, which is the absolute truth.
Yeah.
When you were developing the first ZenSati #1 cable back in 2009, how close did you actually get to the ideal total neutrality on the very first prototype? And what was the one change that finally made you say, now it disappears?
Yeah, that's a good question. You have a team around you. I am sure that also that Vitus have, since the beginning, a team around you where you did not trust your own ears, you also trust friends you could trust. So I did the same. I had very good friends, also audiophiles, where we were listening step by step what I was developing. And when I was ready to go in air, I trust what it was. I was full into the solution that the ZenSati #1 or the ZenSati #2 was ZenSati number 3, but the 3 first lines I trusted completely because it was anchored in my backyard by friends, by professionals that had good ears about the talk with Vitus, that talk about the ears, but also that you have this good feeling in the body that this is music. Now the system is playing music and not just some replication that's just blah, blah, blah. But it is trustful. The saxophone sounds perfect now. Or way better. It makes a difference. I feel comfortable now in this setup here. And when you have a family, friends, or network that's just say, Mark, go for it. I did it. That was the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Vitus.
Yes.
What is the single biggest compromise you have ever refused to make on a Vitus project, even if accepting it would have meant lower costs or a much faster time to market?
Wow, that's a question. Well, I can't actually pinpoint to anything. It's just I am this person that don't suffer from OCD, but CDO, which is OCD in alphabetic order. So that's kind of the gravity of the condition, let's say. I just simply refuse to compromise. And one example I can give is this is one of the reasons actually why when I started the company, not started the company, but got my VAT number in 1995, it was on the 17th of January, 1995, and until we actually released the first product, which was, from where we count officially CES 2004, even though we did some trials and errors in 2003, was because we were just going into this deep level of trying to figure out to remove obstacles. And for a power amplifier, the biggest problem component in the whole circuitry is the transformer. Because if the transformer is not really optimal, it's secondary what comes after it. So that's the first thing I tried to attack. And together with one of the brightest transformer designers in Denmark at the time, we spent about 4 years going back and forth with the different types of transformer topologies, the different materials, the different copper materials, the shapes of the copper, etc., and how they were don't even know the English word, wounded? No, not wounded. That's what happens when you drop the transformer on your feet because it's 30 kilos. So one thing that was very adamant to me at the time was when I was measuring at the time standard type toroidal transformers. You mentioned global feedback before that, I was trying to really never want to use global feedback. I think I've been worse in my my expressions with regards to toroidal transformers and how bad I think they are, and really comes down to the fact that I measured a lot of them. And from open loop to closed loop, which means from no load to full load of the transformers, from toroidal transformers, I found that most of them gave me a drop of voltage to up to 12 or 13%. So when you have split rails, that's twice as much. So you get around 25-ish%. And power is, theoretically calculated from voltage, supply voltage squared divided by the load. So, which basically means in terms of trying to translate that if you have an amplifier that's using a toroidal transformer of that standard type back there 20 years ago, or more than 20 years ago, that if you loaded it full throttle, which is typically at the low frequencies and with around 20 hertz-ish, and at very tough loads like big electrostatic speakers or whatever it was, Sonos Faber Extremer, those kind of things, that the power of the amp would actually drop because the rails were doing this. So I wanted at all costs, to use your own wording, avoid that. And because of that, we ended up with a UI transformer. And that UI transformer with these special materials and the fact that they were kind of handmade, still using machines, but somebody really controlling that all the windings were meticulously correct at every single turn, meant that our transformer at the end, instead of having this around 12%-ish drop from open loose to closed loose per rail, went down to sub 2%. So it was much more rigid and firm in how it could supply the voltage and really just continuously deliver the current.
And faster.
And faster, yes. There are some drawbacks with that in terms of capacitance, coupling to the mains, etc., but you can work around that. But what it means is that this transformer that we ended up with is 10 times the price of a standard toroidal transformer. And that's just one example one example of how I just refuse to compromise. If I was just going to build another amplifier, why? No, I wanted to really go all in and just build, and I'm still there. I want to build the best I can without even considering cost. And of course you see that on our price levels of the products. But for me, it's not about building a good product at a certain price. It's always about how can I build the best I possibly can. And then we do the bum list afterwards, and quite often we go, whoops, that's a certain cost, but that's just how my head works. And it's still to that, as I mentioned offline before. I mean, I spent the last 3 years or so kind of reinventing myself. And that's not easy when you've been doing it for this many years, but I literally want to go into the next phase of VA with either new perspective of things or even a different view on certain technologies. And everything is in play, so I'm testing global feedback, I'm testing toroidal transformers, I'm testing all sorts of different things because I want to be absolutely sure that whatever I choose moving forward might be exactly what we've done for the past 20 years, but I want to be sure that it's still valid what I decided plus 20 years ago, because a lot happened in 20 years. Maybe not so much in amplifier technology, Class D and other stuff, but the typical Class A, B, Class B or Class A amplifiers didn't, it's not rocket science. So it's just how I'm wired, I guess. The total lack of willingness to compromise. So it's the best way I can answer a very good question, actually.
Thank you.
I'm also thinking that with a good question about you shouldn't underestimate young people, how they actually feel when they listen to very, very good music.
No.
I mean, when the new generation who uses phones and
streaming is it.
I mean, think about what you can actually put in their minds if they... the future.
Yeah, exactly.
You also have to think about the future.
Like we had this guy downstairs asking about why don't you have an SACD player? And I'm like, no, we're focusing on streaming. And he was like, but why? Because this is where young people is. This is where the next generation of customers is.
Interesting.
Not the one that has 500. I think he mentioned he bought 500 SACDs, and that's cool. I'd love to have a 500 SACD collection in my house for sure. I would prefer that over streaming any day of the week. But for the young generation and the future customers, they don't care. Well, maybe they care. Some of them care a little bit about vinyl, but they sure as hell don't care about CDs.
Yeah.
They would actually rather go to cassettes because there's some more nostalgia with that. But the CD is digital. I will just stream.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
So, Mark, many cable designers tune their cables to have a recognizable house sound. You've gone in the exact opposite direction, absolute neutrality with no signature at all. Has there ever been a temptation during the development of a new series like Seraphim or Silencio or X, meaning a number, to leave just a tiny bit of warmth or air that customers seem to love, even if it wasn't 100% truthful?
it is a part of our strategy and a statement that we want to be neutral. And it is also our communication to Vitus and other electronic manufacturers that you produce so fantastic products that are sounding neutral. And we have manufacturers that is producing neutral loudspeakers. So we don't need to add our signature to this world. We appreciate manufacturers, high treasured manufacturers there can produce an amplifier, CD player, streamer, or loudspeaker that have full range and are neutral sounding without any distortion. And this is where our life is. This is where ZenSati is a complement to this chain. And we don't see this necessary to give any kind of coloration. We can do it, but we don't do it. We do this that we have the conductor, and the electron is working like this on the conductor, depending on the signal. And we give the space inside the cable so the electrons can work freely. There's more freely, there's more neutral is it, there's more dynamic and more micro details we're bringing out to the loudspeaker or to the driver even. If we have also this kind of cabling inside the loudspeaker, we're bringing out this powerful openness out to the driver, and that gives that the driver is moving forward, backward freely. And this is why we also was talking about the speed in amplification today, that when the amplification is so speedy and fast, you need also very fast cabling that can transport both ways the signal, the power. And this is also where we have our platform in this business, that we can handle the signal both ways. When the driver is going forward, it takes power, it gives power when it goes backwards, and this is why we have this chain of neutrality that don't give any signature. Of course, we have manufacturers that like a signature in the loudspeakers, or that Vitus have a formulation of a signature, but we don't want to go into this at all. We appreciate the colleagues in this business, they're doing a perfect job, and we are only supplementary. I think this is the answer of this question.
Okay, thank you. Vitus, after almost 30 years of designing amplifiers, which specific component, circuit topology, or technical solution that you personally invented or implemented are you the most proud of? Something that nobody else in the industry does quite the same way.
That's a good question.
That's a very, very tough question. Really putting me on the spot there. Well, what can I say? I'm a genius. No. I'm just buying myself here some time with a little bit of blah blah. It's a super question. I don't know. I mean, I mentioned the transformer before, and I'm quite. I didn't think about it as being proud of that as such. I just saw it as a necessity for getting to where I wanted to go. Mark is speaking about neutrality. Another thing that that I'm, when I think about it, kind of proud of is that I come from this background. I'm a drummer, well, not a professional drummer by any means, but I still goof around with drums. I goof around a little bit with guitars, a bass and a normal guitar. And the amps I use when I do that is tubes. Because we talked about it many times downstairs already during the day that tubes have even harmonic distortion. And even harmonic distortion is not it's not unpleasing the ear. It's not like it's pleasing the ear, but it's okay for the ear, where unharmonic or uneven harmonic distortion is, the ear doesn't like it that much. And so tubes have this even harmonic distortion, which is why it sounds great when you have that riff or whatever. So And tubes sound fantastic. This liquidity and whatever you want to put, of names to it, and female voices and stuff. And I always wanted to try and mix that tubey sound with solid states, power, grip, attack, and speed in the low frequencies, which the tubes, to my knowledge, at least today, doesn't possess. And so, but I wanted to do it with BJGs because I don't know how to design with tubes, and I'm very impatient. So I honestly couldn't be bothered learning how to design with tubes. And the feedback I get from customers is that, customers I've never met before say, "Oh, it sounds just like tubes of higher frequencies and solid state power and grip." And so I'm kind of proud with that because this is what was going on in my head when I started. So when customers give me that feedback, it means to some extent that I've succeeded in that. And so yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. And is that neutral in terms of, maybe not, but this is what I wanted. This is, let's say, the word you're using, house signature. And if we have one, that's probably it. Else, it's, I would say the thing I'm most proud of in all these years is, again, I didn't feel, at least personally, that I ever compromised in terms of our quality and where we want to go with this. It's about, for me, passion. It's about doing what I love to do. It's about spreading joy. Because at the end of the day, if we get a little bit commercial, and I get this question quite a lot, what are you actually selling? You're selling amplifiers and CD players? No, we're selling emotions. That's really what we do, because music is about emotions. And without emotion, life is boring. Somebody actually told me on a recent trip that a life without emotion is a life without joy, is really not worth living. And that's very, very strong. But that's just the part of the passion. And for me, that's really what it is. I saw this, I've seen it quite a bit. What's her name? Belgium singer Laura Fabian, I believe her name is. So she has this old recording of, it's in French, so I don't remember it, but it's about malade, I'm sick. And it's about this love story, and she's drinking too much whiskey and stuff. Je malade, something, I don't remember. But honestly, when I sit alone, because when I'm in front of my wife, I'm the strong Viking, and Vikings don't cry, they have their axe. But when I'm alone and I hear that, I cry. Because it's really just goes into my heart. And it's super, super emotional. And that's what it's all about. And so if I can bring that to people who listen to music, that's a win-win. That's the main thing for me. It's not about the gear. And to that extent, I want to add one more thing, because people also ask about our design. It's very industrial. And, we have different colors that we provide. And people ask, so what's the reasoning behind that? And it's one thing and one thing only. It's to be able to make the gear disappear in the room. Sometimes people say, well, how the hell can you make this huge gear disappear in the room? Well, it depends on how you do with colors and stuff, and that's the point. Mm-hmm. Because it's, for me, not about the gear. The gear is like the vessel for the end result, which is an experience and emotions, and that's where I come from. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Good answer. Good answer.
Thank you.
Okay, going back to you, Mark.
Yeah.
There is this rumor on the internet. I'm not sure how real it is, but you can tell me. Is that you personally listen to every single cable that leaves the factory. After 15 years and thousands of cables, is there still a moment when you plug in a new reference cable and it surprises you? Or have you reached the point where you can literally predict exactly how it sounds before you even connect it?
Yeah. We are testing every cable that is leaving the factory, for sure, in different ways. And I do not develop anything without our backyard, as I told you before, is activating. We don't release anything before it's approved, and I've been listening to this long time, so we are sure that it have the function as we want it. Because we want to keep the concept intact. Vitus was talking about his way to create a fantastic amplifier and this personal signature. And we don't want to destroy this in any environment of amplification or loudspeaker. So it's very important that we don't bring anything bad or strange or change into the final solution, so we don't change the signature. It has to be so the customer trusts that this is neutral. That means neutral, not boring, but without signature. That what I hear is the loudspeakers, the track, the recording, the amplification, the pre-amplification, or whatever you have in your chain. And this is our concept. Neutrality is not the same that is boring, but we just transport the electrons through the system. And we are guaranteed that when we release our product, it is what it is. This is what's standing for. The ZenSati is standing for, it's tested. We believe in this, and other person can also believe that we are truthful to the concept. I think this is the answer on that question.
Okay, thank you. Vitus, well, sort of the last question for you, because you're going to have to answer one question together.
Oh.
But this one is for you. You are now doing a new role, which is ambassador, brand ambassador, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yes. How long do you have? That is true. I mean, I've been trying to sidetrack myself because I want to go back in to do real R&D and be the main development engineer. This is where it all started so many years ago. But of course, as the company grows, we add more people, etc. But I became more the commercial the commercial guy, the brand. So I was traveling all the time, and so I was the CTO, but I didn't get my hands dirty. So I kind of sidetracked myself a little bit from that, to go back to get my hands dirty, really into the deep technology part. As I mentioned before, I spent the last 3 years or so reinventing myself. That was really what this is about. But it was, when I start a brand so many years ago, and the brand name is my name, obviously to a certain extent, I am the brand. I can't escape from that. Even I don't want to, but even if I wanted to, I can't really. It was always the idea that I would still go on shows and do all of these different things for promotional, not so much commercial, but branding tours. But there wasn't anything official about it. It was just the natural thing, what happened. But yes, now I got this unofficial/official title of brand ambassador, and I travel, I go to shows, I do these interviews. I don't talk anything commercial as such. It's literally just about showing myself and talking to people and do the branding. But what actually lies behind it comes back to what I learned during my time in Texas Instruments. Part of my role was when these clever engineers in Texas or wherever they were had an idea about this new chip. They wrote a list of specifications and features and all of this, and I was a part of that, the part of the organization that went in front of customers, engineers, and was asking them about, so we are planning or talking about this new chip. We have this list of features and specs and whatever, and which ones are important to you and which ones are not, kind of getting some market feedback that we would feed into a database, which then was kind of funneling down what the final chip would actually have of features and specs. And so this is where the philosophy comes from, because I realized over the past 3 years that just sitting in the lab and just doing R&D and experimenting not only gets very lonely, that's one thing, but it also becomes very unicorn-like. It's just, you get into this chamber and you just think kind of you know it all, and you don't. So what I was missing, which is super important, is the feedback from the customers and our partners and everybody that I meet. In terms of saying, I'm working on this new whatever thing it is, and I'm considering doing such and such. And sometimes people would look at me strange, like, why? Why would you do this? This makes no sense. It would make a lot more sense to do such and such. Having this interaction with people is helping me as a developer to develop products that the market is actually interested in. Especially, the sound part is one thing, but in terms of features. So I'll give an example. There was, and I can really relate to this. I'm a turntable guy. And so, of course, phono stages and stuff is one of the things I really love tinkling with. And so one guy was telling me, he was not interested in our phono stages because we didn't offer the opportunity of having an MC step-up transformer. And I said, well, in the old days, and maybe you can remember, we had this magazine in Denmark called High Fidelity. And there was a review of multiple different step-up transformers. And the title of this review was not step-up transformers, it was stop-up transformers. Because the reviewer felt that regardless of which one it was simply killing dynamics. It did amplify the signal, but it kind of just mellowed everything out, and everything sounded kind of the same, and a little bit boring, to use your analogy before. And so I explained this to him and said, so this is kind of what I grew up with, and so I did some experiments back then, and I kind of agreed with this review, and so I just never gave it any quality time. And he started listing examples of cartridges where if you didn't have a step-up transformer, they would simply just perform really badly because of how the motor inside the cartridge was actually made, and how the typical phono stage was built like. And this is the kind of interactions that I really love, because this customer, even though he was not a deep technical guy, he was able to put words from the consumer point of view to me as an engineer, which made me go, I need to go back and maybe relearn a few things and do some experiments. So one feature I'm considering at this point for the phono stage is to actually have, a phono stage where you can choose on each input whether you want to use a step-up transformer, or you want to use a FET-based, FET, not fat-based, FET-based step-up active stage, or a bipolar, because they each have their own type of, let's say, signature. And the thing is, with cartridges, they have very, very different sound footprints, and this is just giving a flexibility which I find interesting, because the customer then can choose which one they want. Either it could be, and it's on a technology base or platform at this point, so not on a product, but maybe it will end up as a phono stage that has all three options and you can choose, or it's gonna be like a module where you can choose from start whether you want one or the other. I mean, we don't even know yet. But coming back as a brand ambassador and having this interaction with the market and the customer has that type of result. And this is where a job as an engineer for me becomes really interesting, because when you just sit in this closed environment for too long, I think the ego runs away with you. And so I don't like the egocentric part of it, I guess. So it's the best way I can answer.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So Mark, your last question, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the current top ZenSati models, what is the one remaining obstacle in terms of material, physics, geometry, whatever, that still prevents us from reaching 100% perfect signal transmission? And how close do you think we are to finally solving this in your lifetime?
We can prove that we are on a right track by just testing a loom. What we are doing to do it better and better is damping and shielding, because there is so much interfere from atmosphere, and in a home there is a lot of rays. So we are shielding. We use a lot of time to develop that the cables are shielded and damped. And we are maybe one of the kind that's talking about damping. The reason why we're talking about damping the cables and get the perfect cable out of this is that when you have a system that goes under 20 hertz, even under 15 hertz, we have our reference system that goes to 5 hertz. It's wall shaking, it's floor shaking, it's ceiling shaking, and there we can hear the difference if the cable line is damped or not damped. And this is where we can make a huge difference, because more and more people like to have a system that is in tonal balance, but also goes very deep. The youngsters are moving out in houses and they're buying big speakers that's going deep. The electronic is following, going down to 5 hertz without any trouble. And the cable lines also have to follow down and protect the conductor from this shaking atmosphere environment in this room, because it's the air, it is the floor, it's everywhere there is resonances and frequencies that do not belong to the conductor. So where we can make a huge difference is to do the damping even better. Because when you have a reference system that goes deep, you can hear the difference if it's not damped good enough. But we are on the track. When you look at the ZenSati lines, it getting thicker and thicker is because of the damping material we are using. And we are now looking into a new line that will be released next year. There's even more damped. It's a never-ending story. We are good on the conductor. We have very good result and success with our conductor that is doing pretty good. So shielding and damping is what's going on right now from our side to support colleagues in the business like Vitus. And we love to be there because we can make this different, that the signature, the way our colleagues, for example here, Vitus is creating this fantastic construction of amplification, which are supporting this. We're holding it up and just bring the best out of this out to the loudspeaker. And this is where we are in the business.
Okay. So I have one last question, but you're going to have to answer it together. Well, you can choose the order, well, whoever wants to go first. You partially answered it, but maybe you can develop it more. Okay, so my question for both of you is, why are you friends? Why do you work together? What makes you, come together at these kinds of meetups?
Well, on the funny side, which I'm sorry, that's just me. Denmark is a very small country. There's only like 6 million people. So we can't avoid each other. So we're forced to work together. No, kidding. Well, as Mark said before, we share multiple partners around the world. And so even when we have our ideas and mutual ideas and our opinions about how our products work together, it says a lot when our partners, where we have mutual partners, the feedback they give, and for whatever reason, it's a little bit internal. Don't like the word synergy too much. There is just that synergy that makes the product go to, it just works. I don't know how to explain it really. And so, we share some common interest with speed. You on motorcycles, me on mainly cars. I'm I'm sorry, I call myself a Viking, but this two-wheel thing is a little bit too real for me. So I prefer to sit in a enclosed box when it comes to that. So there's just, there's many things. And I think also we share a lot of the same philosophies in terms of what we want to bring to the customer, really. So that's the short answer for me. So you can supplement.
I can supplement that we try to avoid compromises. That when we go for a product, when we go for a solution, we want to do it correct. We want to do it decent. We want to do it with a quality that belongs to the Danes, the Vikings. I mean, we are Danish companies. We want to do it decent. You can control it, you can test it, but it's solid. It's function, and price and quality hang together. And there we also have a common statement that we don't go under, we don't go down, we don't underprice things. We keep up the quality and quality cost. And we are meeting each other many places on this earth where we are, talk Danish and we understand each other very fast. But we also understand that the music first. When the music is talking to us, to you as a viewer here, this small interview here, we are settled. And this is what our business is about. It's not about only what you hear. It's also, do it go to your heart, as Vitus talked about? Does it go to your vein, to your body? Do you got the goosebumps? Do you feel that this concert here is actually almost real? This is our business. This is what brings us together. When we are using each other's products, it just sounds good. It sounds perfect. Everybody is agree about that. The sound is correct. And this is why I can link me up to Vitus. And this is why I can link me up to other manufacturers also. I'm a little bit so neutral in this business because I don't care who is a manufacturer, but I like the sound from Vitus products. This is my shortest answer on that question.
And I have to add actually that it's not something that just was natural at all, because we met many times, even before I actually at that point heard of ZenSati, because even though we're a small country, Mark is on the what we in Jutland, what we call the real Danish people, is on the half Swedish side. We have this internal thing going on, the dynamics of Danish people. So at the time, I was so focused, or for many years, I was so focused on VA that I wasn't even knowing what was going on, and I still try, kind of in some areas at least, to stay away from the market, because I use this term, which is, to be honest, a little bit arrogant. I don't want my ideas and my mind distorted by what others are doing, and I don't mean that in a negative way in any way. It's simply just I want to have my own ideas, and if I know what's going on in the market, how can I say it was my own idea? Because for sure I got some inspiration from somewhere. You always do that, but I want to try and minimize that. So many times I'm in this cheese bell kind of thing. So we met many times during CES. So we literally have to. What were you? A 3 hours ish drive away from each other, but we had to go to Vegas to meet. Yeah. So it took quite a few years when we were meeting and talking before we even put our products together for the first time.
That's correct.
So it took, it didn't happen like this. It just developed over time. And this is, for me, for sure, the most healthy way of doing these kind of things.
Agree.
So yes, we also work with many others, but you have to be flexible in this business. So yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Vitus.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure.
Well, likewise.